Good evening, everyone. Give us a moment. We're actually just barely getting ready to start recording, but welcome to the podcast. And this is usually around that magical time where we talk about the stories that didn't quite make it. For what reason or another, I don't know why I'm speaking like this. Maybe Alex can enlighten us.
I don't know. I never know why you do the things you do.
And yet you still criticize them, sir.
Of course I
I'm
do.
kidding.
I'm not busting your chops. I'm not doing my job.
This is actually kind of true. Because if you're not going to bust my chops, then who is? Well, me. But we
Yeah.
both kind of learned that's not a good thing. So the first story that we need to talk about, a listener reached out to us and asked if we had seen that the Ruby, Emerald, and Sapphire Pokemon are being added to Pokemon Go, along with a Pokemon Go Halloween event.
I'm not.
I hadn't seen it, but I'm not surprised. I'm guessing the same is probably true for Alex.
Yeah. I hadn't seen it. Not really surprised.
No, it's not really all that surprising. So at that point, not really a whole lot to talk about there. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so now we've officially acknowledged it. The other one, or another story that did get brought to us is again from a listener. They wanted to know if we knew about the Resident Evil 7 DLC, mainly because on Draken Shadow we actually did a Resident Evil playthrough, and people might remember earlier this year I did a review of Resident Evil 7. We actually talked about it on Draken Shadow in the most recent recording that we did. So at that point, yeah, we know about it, and it looks cool. So December 12th is the release date for the Not a Hero DLC. And I don't want to give details because, again, Alex hasn't gotten to 7 yet. But we also
Yeah.
have a DLC pack, additional DLC pack that will be added called The End of Zoe. So both look really cool. And I'm very excited for them. So, yay! December 12th, I will begrudgingly play Resident Evil 7 again and not get any sleep for the rest of that month. Because that will probably be what happens. As sad as that is. Let's see. Oh, yes. As a quick update, so the Netflix Punisher series finally got its release date. So this is just kind of a quick update. But we do have an official release date for the Punisher series for those who were asking about it. And I believe it's, it's November 17th. So you guys will be getting that next month. I'm happy for you. I will be watching it begrudgingly. I'm just not a fan of the Punisher. And I know that a lot of Draken Shadow fans have actually brought up, well, you guys technically have seen the Punisher because you keep on talking about how you saw the Fox animated Spider-Man. Yes, the Punisher was in it. So Alex, you can't say that you don't know who the Punisher is because you've seen him.
True.
So,
yeah.
There you go. I've officially chastised him for you. Are you happy, Internet? Well, you should be. The next story that actually didn't make the cut this week, and it's just because we had a couple of other things that listeners did want us to talk about, and I actually got no listener suggestions for this, was the addition of the Activision filing a patent in 2015 for microtransactions, roughly.
Oh, yeah. I just heard about this today.
Yes. Well, I've been hearing about it all week because I've been following there's apparently a change.org petition. I know this should not surprise the Shadow Blazer in the slightest. There is a change.org petition about the patent. There's a number of other counteractions to it. The main reason that it didn't make it was, again, no listener. We got a bunch of listener stories this week, and I wanted to be able to cover them. And if it's still relevant, we'll probably cover it next week. Because, well, Activision filing a patent for microtransactions, that's a big deal. Let's see. And this time, Alex was not the first to the mark, because this is another story that could have made the agenda this week. There's also apparently a change.org petition for loot boxes being considered gambling. And I guess the biggest culprit of this that is on the petition is Blizzard. Is that true? I haven't looked at the official outline for it.
Let's find out.
I don't think Blizzard's the biggest culprit of it. I would actually dare say probably Activision and EA came up with the loot boxes before they did. I would actually dare say probably Blizzard borrowed the idea from Activision. And by borrow, I mean they went in and said, hey, we make all your money. Gimme. Let's see.
Well, it doesn't name anyone specifically.
It doesn't really name a specific company. Saying, So the make ESRB declare loot boxes as gambling. And I guess the purpose of this petition is just to get a higher rating? A higher age rating?
Wow, they really are going for blood here. They want ESRB to pretty much declare any game with gambling adults only. Well, they misspell it adulty only, but
I could already tell you that's not happening, guys.
I think a mature is more than suitable, guys.
Well, no, my only deal on the matter is that you're asking the video game industry to do something. How well has that worked for you in the past, guys?
Okay, well, specifically, this is the ESRB, which is an independent organization.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't make it clear. The video game industry. And as much as you want to make the claim that the ESRB is above the gaming industry, you and I both know that's not the case.
I'm not saying they're saintly, but it's a ratings board with humans, and they're certainly
that gets paid by the gaming industry. Ergo, they are the gaming industry.
I guess you could say that, because I think they do charge a fee to have your game rated.
Yeah, they do take money.
Yeah.
And they will consider lowering a game's rating because of that. So they took a bribe to get their game lowered. Okay. So sorry, that does not make them above the game industry. That makes them a part of the game industry. I think you and I can both at least agree on that. So yeah, this one, again, a listener brought it to my attention before Alex did. And I guess my thoughts on the matter are, has this ever worked for you in the past? If not, then it's not going to work now. Sorry. I don't care. Like right now, it's sitting at 9,300 of 10,000 signatures. I'm sure it'll go higher than that, but I hate to go to this example, but how many, what was it, 30,000 that signed the whole private server agreement? Did Blizzard listen to you?
No.
Sorry. So as much as I find it, I don't find this admirable. I find this weird. I think it's just simply because we're tired of all these microtransaction games. Okay, if you're tired of them, don't. I'm going to whisper really well, so I'm hoping you guys can you hear me, Alex?
Don't shout. Okay.
If you don't like microtransactions, don't pay into them.
Simple as that.
Maybe you didn't hear me. Don't pay into them. If you know a friend who does, you tell them the evils of it. And then you let them make their own decision. I know. Somebody actually brought this up to me. Apparently, I only come up with the boring solutions in an era of extreme decisions. Sorry.
Yeah.
And hello, Rising Sun Reviews. So we got a live chat, by the way, so you guys are more than welcome to join it. So yeah, there's really not much I could say aside from people are pissed that microtransactions exist in games, And so they're saying, we want to make it adults only so that they suck and they won't do well. But the solution has been in front of your nose the entire time. Don't pay into them. Bring to your friends how evil the system is in your mind. Be able to bring rational arguments to it. And then maybe you'll convince them they won't start paying into it. They'll tell their friends and family, and there you go. But until that happens, until the moment that video game companies literally look you in the eye and say, yeah, we're going to cancel the microtransactions thing because it's not profitable, it's not going away. So I appreciate the 9,300 who signed this damn petition, but I hate to tell you this, you are not getting your wish. Just like retake Mass Effect, people. You didn't get your wish. Let's see. It's so much fun to set the evil on fire and then laughingly. Oh, okay. Well, I'll take your word for that. I haven't set evil on fire in a long time. Mainly because I am that evil. I'll let you guys assess that situation. Wait, so we're bringing petitions to the podcast. That means my petition worked.
I suppose it did.
Technically, I'm going to say no, it didn't, because technically a listener beat Alex to this petition.
But the point is, we're
so
bringing
no, Rising
petitions.
Sun, you need more signatures. I'm totally not demanding that you continue to work hard for the sake of this goal that you have. I'm totally not doing that. But it was not him that brought the petition. It was a listener. Please continue to work hard on that. Thanks, Rising Sun Reviews. We appreciate it. So let's see. Other stories that we need to get into that unfortunately didn't make the cut for the agenda tonight. Crap, Romney's here, and there was one for Romney specifically, and I can't remember what it was because unfortunately I didn't write it down. Well, dang it, Romney. Blame you for that.
It's not the first calamity I've been blamed for.
Yeah, pretty much. So actually, let's do a lightning round with Romney. So Gen 3 and Pokemon Go, are you surprised?
I don't even play Pokemon Go anymore, so I honestly do not care.
All right. The ESRB petition to declare loot boxes to declare loot boxes as gambling, and ergo a game should be rated adults only because of gambling.
See, that's a tricky thing because it's not like the CS:GO Lotto situation where the skins could be sold in exchange for real money. It would have to, if they were to make such a declaration, it would have to be on a case-by-case basis. It's not something that they could do as a blanket declaration. And again, I don't play a lot of online games where loot boxes are the prize, but that would be something I would actually have to look at the actual legalities. And so, in terms of having such declaration, that would have to be something that, at least that I feel, would have to be done on a case-by-case basis, especially weighing how much you'd have to weigh the monetary value.
Hold on. And the only reason I'm cutting you off is simply this. The reason for the petition is that all games that include any kind of microtransaction, loot box, anything like that, all be immediately put AO on the ESRB because of gambling. That's literally what the petition's about.
Well, the best way to put it is if you can't sell what you get from the loot boxes back for real money, it's not really gambling. Because if you get it, you get it. And that seems to be how, at least in my experience, how it seems to work. So unless you can specifically sell the content you get from the loot boxes back for real world money, and that's going to be a tough thing to argue.
See, this is why I love Romney. Romney gives you, I give you just a common sense solution. He gives you an actual real world logic solution for it. Because I just basically looked at everybody and went, yeah, how did that 30,000 signature for Blizzard to take away their whole private server thing go? Oh, they didn't listen. Makes me wonder how many people are actually going to listen to this one.
Yeah, of
Especially
course.
when
With
you can't spell adults.
yeah, especially considering that Nostalrius was a direct violation of Blizzard's terms of
Yes.
service. So there was nothing you could do. You signed the EULA when you sign into BattleNet.
Yeah, again, this is another just example of I'm saying, look, you went to change.org and I appreciate that, but how many of your petitions have actually worked out? And at that point, you got to say really none of them. Because unfortunately, the game developer has to look at your petition and go, oh, well, we either like this or we don't like it. And in that case, well, too bad. Kind of thing. So the final one is, and actually this one almost made the agenda like by a hair, and the only reason it didn't was because of listener suggestions. We'll probably talk about it next week because I have a feeling we're going to get updates on it. Is the Activision filing a patent for microtransactions. It's almost like we just barely talked about this. But yeah, apparently Activision had a patent filed in 2015 for a microtransactions model, I believe is the way it worked. So they had a patent filed for it, and now that has actually become legit. It got certified this year. I think literally like a week ago.
Well, if it's something that's actually a unique model that is limited specifically to Activision games, well, then that's the way patents work. If it's something that they use for their products, then yeah, they by all means should patent it. But that's where you get into kind of the fine line of, okay, what about this specific microtransaction model makes it unique and different from all the other microtransaction models that are currently in the market?
I don't know, because the internet literally imploded the second that they heard Activision filed a patent for microtransactions, and then the internet went.
Yeah, I think it's specifically because the sentence has Activision, microtransactions in the same sentence. I mean, you're going to trigger somebody, even if you're saying, oh, I hope Activision doesn't put any more microtransactions in the next game. Just the fact that those two words are in the same sentence, you're asking for trouble.
Pretty much. I think the default reaction is always going to be. So there you go. All right. And so I'm just going to go ahead and warn you guys in advance. I'm actually going to be doing a little bit more with the opening this week because I have some wonderful news for people. And by that, I mean I have numbers.
I'm guessing that should be the clue that we should start rolling the audio.
In a second. Unfortunately, I was working on something today and my daughter wouldn't let me finish it. So I'm like rushing really quick to finish it. And there. Come on. Save. Damn it. Okay. But yeah, we're going to do a little bit of an opening because we have a lot of things to be thankful for this week. And I'll go over the details with you guys after because you guys will like it. You guys will like it. And also the listeners of the podcast will like it. But you guys will see that in a second. So, and also I should probably point this out just while we're waiting on this thing to get saved. The panelists will be appreciative of this because the Prozac budget has been reissued because the first portion of this podcast is damn depressing. So there you go. You guys can have your Prozacs. As you guys can see, Romney already took his. He's like, what's this little pill on my desk? It came back.
Nah, I just mix it into my drink now. I mean, I stopped tracking doses years ago, so I'm just like, yeah, I'll just crumble the whole bottle here.
Wait, we got a Disney story? Well, screw this. Chug-a-lug. Okay, really quick. There we go. No, I want the Blue Yeti. Okay. This is what happens when you run with multiple microphones on this computer. Okay, so ready to go when you guys are.
All right. Sound speed.
Go, rolling.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. There we go, my friends. If you're brand spanking new to the chat, by the way, if you notice that we don't pay attention to the podcast, it's because we're recording. So if we see your stuff, it's probably going to be when we're not talking and we're able to actually pay attention to the chat. So I'm just going to warn you. So here we go. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek. This time for Friday night, October 20th, 2015. I, of course, am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody's had an awesome week this week. I can already tell you that we have had an awesome week this week, and we'll get to that in a second. Because first of all, I want to introduce my panel of my fellow YouTubers, my fellow critics, my fellow awesome guys in general. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way, starting with Alex, the Shadow Blazer himself, always coming out of the shadows for the ladies' pleasure. Alex, how you doing tonight?
I guess I'm all right tonight. My head's a little scattered from the week's events. Just work's been busy. So I guess you could say funny story, so to speak. I ended up buying a ticket for a one-night-only anime screening. A Silent Voice is actually playing in some local theaters around the area. So I, of course, bought myself a ticket for totally forgetting, it's Friday night at 7 o'clock. It's no big deal for me because I'd already seen the movie anyway, and it's a subtitled screening only. Plus, I already got a copy on reserve on Blu-ray because even though I have to import it from Great Britain, which sucks because no one has it over here in the States as of yet, but it has an American-produced dub. I don't get how it works, but it's weird. But so, long story short, yeah, I missed no movie, but oh well, they get my money anyway, and it's a movie I'm more than happy to give my money.
So
yeah,
you paid for the ticket, so at that point, you're still supporting it.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that.
And yet he is supporting the podcast as well. This is the multitasker hipster, or the multitasker that you all call a hipster. I'll never understand why, but you know what? It's still fun to call him a hipster from time to time. And then, of course, we also have Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost, From the Shelf, Romney's Reviews, Rhapsody in Cinema. Romney, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good this week. Has been filled with a few ups and downs. The main up is that I'm steadily working on the first and possibly one of the few episodes of Monster Clash for this year because of certain circumstances and the fact that some films take a lot longer to dissect than others that I've come to realize.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I know a few people have actually asked, like, the process of a Monster Clash series or video for you. And I don't know, you may need to make a video on that because I know of at least a few people who would like to know, like, what actually goes into it. Is it as in-depth as, say, like James Rolfe does for his Monster Madness or stuff like that? But
yeah, I'll definitely have to consider it, especially considering that I'll probably only be able to get 2-3 reviews up if I'm lucky. So who knows? Maybe I'll use that to needlessly pad for content.
Yeah, something like that. But so now that we got the panel introduced, before we get into the stories, I did want to touch on something really quick, a little bit of business for the podcast. And that is that we've said it numerous times, but Geek News we've been working hard to be able to make Geek News as awesome a podcast as we possibly can for you guys. I've been working on it, obviously, since it was the evening of geekery when it started out. And then as soon as I brought on Aldo and Romney, and then eventually Alex, we've all worked hard to be able to make the podcast as awesome as we could. And one of the ways that I worked hard to be able to make it not only awesome, but also get it into people's hands was for the longest time, I've actually been petitioning iTunes and other platforms to be able to start showing the podcast on that platform. And it's taken a long time for this to happen, but I was actually very fortunate last weekend in the fact that I was able to finally secure Geek News, Why We Geek, and the Run of the Ropes podcast onto iTunes literally a couple of days ago, and I couldn't be more happy about it because already we are starting to see brand new faces on the pod, or brand new views, brand new listens and downloads due to the fact that they are now up on the iTunes market. So if you're a brand spanking new listener to the podcast, thank you. First of all, we really do appreciate it. And we appreciate that you guys took the time to be able to listen to the podcast that we work so hard to present to you guys. And this has actually been a really thankful week for me because momentum has been a major deal. I was able to get all of these podcasts up, as well as being able to get not only the podcast, but also YouTube stuff into basically more eyes, being able to get it basically into more people's laps for them to try things out. And so I just wanted to start things off with a great big thank you to all of the brand new listeners that we actually have now gotten due to iTunes. And we'll obviously go over those details when we get to the end of the podcast. But thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us if you are able to do so during the podcast. And I'm sure if the panel was not being silent on the matter, they'd probably be able to say the same thing. But thank you guys nonetheless. With that, let's go ahead and get into the first story of the evening, unless you guys wanted to add more to that.
No, I'm thrilled.
Yep. This is awesome for us guys, because we've been working very hard these last few years.
We're moving on up.
So, and it only gets better from here, because now we can get more eyes on the product, which means there's more stuff that we can do.
Yep, time to crank up the queen. Don't stop me now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I'm going to get sued by WWE. Never mind. Yeah, so if you do this, you're going to get sued by WWE. That's what happens.
Yeah, I think fans of Ronnie James Dio will take issue with that. Rock on.
Yeah, probably. Well, not that. Just because you got to make a little bit of wolf. This is the one that they haven't.
They seriously copyrighted the Quiet Coyote?
Yes.
That's what one of my,
or as they call it, the too sweet hand sign.
Well, yeah, because that's what one of my teachers called it, the Quiet Coyote. She would do this whenever we needed to basically shut up. It's like, hey, Quiet Coyote.
Well, they claimed the copyright on it, but they also sent out a cease and desist to two wrestlers for using it, both at $150,000 a piece. But anyway, that's on another podcast. You guys can watch that on another episode. So our first story this evening, I've already told Romney he has to slick back his hair and he has to channel his inner Phoenix right, because we have an update in regards to the Alex Maurer case. Unfortunately, I couldn't find like a legit article that had the court paperwork for it. The only things I was able to get in a Google search were Leonard French's video and Sid Alpha's video. So at that point, we don't have the official documentation, but people might remember a couple of weeks ago, Leonard French filed a motion for default judgment against Alex Maurer for filing her response a day late on the matter. And unfortunately, the news has come back and it's not in our favor. The motion to strike for the fact that it was a day late is denied. And in fact, the judge is going to move things forward with the trial. Because I believe in the documentation, they actually officially start setting up trial dates and actually saying, the judge basically saying in not too many words, you're not going to get this easy, Leonard. We're actually going to go through with this, and we're going to see what we can do in this, or we're actually going to deliberate this case. So aside from that, we don't really have too much aside from motion to strike is denied, and they're setting up a trial. It's one of those things where I really wish I could get Romney the official court documents so he could look them over and be able to give you guys the details. But basically, the judge has summed up that no, it's not going to be as easy as just striking this down. We're gonna have the debate on this.
Yeah, and I did take the time to look at the video when it was first shared to our little secret page, so I am familiar with the judge's statements. And basically, from what I remember from the specific motion, in addition to the motion to strike the response, there was the motion also for default judgment and a few other motions that would basically greatly inhibit Maurer's ability to go after certain videos and conduct certain activities. And the judge has effectively denied all of them.
Yep.
And so from the looks of it, at least from how the document was explained, it's very much the judge is clear saying, yeah, don't think you're going to be able to ram this one through right away.
No.
We're actually going to take time with this one. And some people are interpreting it as the judge taking Maurer's side, whereas I like to look at it as, yeah, one day, having something struck because it was one day late, and even in the judge's own words, it does seem a bit draconian, and so that's probably why the judge is thinking, yeah, that's a bit excessive. It was one day.
So, well, and I mean, when I actually heard the statements on both from Leonard French's video as well as from the Sid Alpha video that we put up, the statement sounded more along the lines of, no, we're actually going to hash this out. We're actually going to determine if Imagos or Alex Maurer is in the right here. We're actually going to do this. And I don't know. I halfway want to applaud the judge for that, but at the same time, this does create a little bit of concern. I've already been seeing it on Leonard French's Twitter, as well as I think Sid Alpha's, where some people have already reached out in concern because does this mean that Alex is going to start, or not our Alex, but Mauer is going to go off on another spree? And I'm just going to go ahead and put this comfort for people. This is not going to be an issue because we're already starting to see over the last few months that YouTube has put in the safeguards necessary so that Mauer can't just go on another takedown spree. Because obviously I believe all of the videos, or at least 90% of them, have since come back. So now that's not necessarily an issue. And once YouTube kind of adjusts or takes care of cases like this, they do begrudgingly adjust the algorithm to be able to handle it, or adjust their internal workings to be able to handle it. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue for people. I understand your concern, but I think we're safe here. I think YouTube is actually, well, on our side in this particular case right now.
Yeah, at least in the case of they don't want to accidentally create the grounds for a massive civil suit, which could occur in the wake of this lawsuit. And another thing that at least Sid Alpha was good for pointing out is that the judge made it clear, yeah, we're going to let it slide, but just this once. Kind of making clear of, hey, we gave you clear deadlines. We're letting it slide this once, but if this happens again, then...
That's the other thing I saw a lot of people approaching French on, and actually even going on their own Twitters and their own social media and ripping the judge a new one, basically saying just from, and it's very clear you didn't read the statement. And here's why I'm going to say that is because immediately some of those actions were, oh, well, obviously this is a PC judge, and the only reason that they did that was because of transgender issues. Okay, I can already tell you didn't read the statement because it was in the first freaking paragraph. She literally states, Mauer, you did this and I'm letting it slide. You do it again, you're done. Okay? So at that point, I can already tell you that's not the case. Mauer is just as much in trouble as you could say Leonard French is. I think it's more along the lines, again, from reading the judge's statement of saying, no, we're going to hash this crap out. We're actually going to have this go to court.
Plus, the other thing to consider is that while Imago Softworks and Don Thacker have Leonard French as their attorney, Mauer is self-representing. And that may have been the reason for the judge's leniency, thinking, okay, she's made the very unwise decision to represent herself, so we'll cut her slack just this once because most people who choose to represent themselves have no idea what they're doing, but making it clear that, yeah, we get it, but don't do this again.
But I also have a strong feeling that if things got overwhelming for Mauer, like this is probably not going to happen, but if, let's just say for the sake of argument, she found the right lawyer to represent her case, I'm pretty sure the judge would say, okay, we'll do this, but now we're doing this on actual like legal terms and kid gloves are off kind of thing. Not to say that kid gloves too much are on in this particular case, but I think there's enough leeway that maybe the judge is kind of expecting that Mauer will get overwhelmed by this and want to hire official counsel. But again, that's up to her, and this is kind of the crutch that Mauer's walking herself into.
Yeah, plus the other thing to consider, and this may even be what the judge and maybe even Leonard French may be hoping for, is that during the actual trial, Mauer's words may kind of leave her hanging by her own petard because of her actions, and considering that her response did not actually address any of the actual claims leveled against her by Don Thacker and Imago Softworks. And so that's probably the more reason why the judge is saying, yeah, we're going to actually deliberate this, so that way it could be basically conclusively decided.
And for those who are actually thinking that, like, no, the YouTube stuff is not going to get brought up in court, Leonard's already brought it up, guys. It's in his legal paperwork.
It is the basis of
it's going to be it's going to be a main purpose of his is he the plaintiff in this one, or is she?
He's the plaintiff.
She's the defendant. She's the defendant. So this is going to be part of his arguments.
Yeah. In fact, the YouTube thing is the YouTube conduct was filed as part of the initial lawsuit. So that is already brought up and put to the record.
Yeah, this is a matter of fact as far as the case is concerned. So at that point, for those who are wondering, well, no, they're just going to judge the whole thing based off of the whole Imagos dealings and maybe even Leonard French. No, all of this is being considered. Because I still remember going through the video, and he actually does explain the chain of events, all of this leading from Imagos all the way to Mauer's actions on YouTube. So this is all going to be put to light. Alex, you've been kind of quiet on this matter. Did you take a positive or a negative from this?
I kind of took mostly a negative. I mean, they definitely put it into some more perspective, but I don't know. I feel like if it were me, if I was this judge, I probably would have just ruled in favor of French here. Mostly just, again, my bare bones knowledge of the law here, and my bare bones knowledge here is, well, the fact that Mauer doesn't have much of a leg to stand on. This is not quite like a gray area, like, say, like a fair use debate here. This is her abusing the DMCA over a contract, over a purported contract dispute. I feel like she really just doesn't have a leg to stand on. But again, this is my own opinion with bare bones knowledge of the law, so don't take me at my word here.
I think
I get there's leniency for filing a day late, but at the same time, I said it like the last time we talked about Mauer, is this woman is not prepared for this. We've seen her fire her like 1 or 2 attorneys now. She has taken quite a bit of time to get her legal documents together. You want to represent yourself, I guess that's on you, but then you got to be prepared. If you're worried that much about a potential mistrial, I don't know if that's the case here. If you're that worried about future litigation with her, then you as the judge should do the thing and appoint reserve counsel to assist her on this, even if she doesn't want it. You know, at the end of the day, this is a civil matter. This is not criminal court where her very life is on the line here. So I don't think you need that much leniency, to be honest.
The only way I see a mistrial out of this is if Mauer actually flips out in court. I think that's probably the only way you're going to see it. And Mauer has been pretty, at least according to French's testimony, she was cool and collected when she walked into the court. So I don't think that's going to happen unless like everything goes wrong her way. Which I don't know if that's going to happen in this particular case. The other thing I was trying to bring up to you, Alex, and I want your opinion on this too, is like there might actually have been a piece of this equation that we didn't actually account for. I don't think it's necessarily that the judge is being PC, but maybe this judge is a little bit more ambitious than we wanted to admit early on. Because again, a lot of this just seems like she wants to have the case out. She wants to actually I don't know if it's a he or she, but the judge actually wants to deliberate this thing. And I mean, I guess make an argument that like the ways judges advance in this regard is that they do handle hard cases like this, I suppose. But I guess this is the one part of the equation we didn't really account for, is that we would get a judge that actually wanted to see all this come to the light of day. And that's pretty much, I guess, what happened here. It was the one cog in the works that we couldn't account for. So that's pretty much the update. When we have additional ones, we'll let you guys know. Obviously, we've been pretty consistent with the Mauer case, and we know that a lot of people are concerned about this one, so we will get to that in due course. Don't worry about that. But here's where the Prozac budget comes into play. The entire tech portion tonight is pretty much bad news, guys. I hate to tell you this, because the next story kind of clenches it as well. Earlier this week, we saw the end of another video game studio, and I've already heard from a couple of listeners, specifically fans of a specific series this studio does, but Visceral Games has officially closed its doors. So if you don't know who Visceral is, the most popular series that I believe they've ever done is the Dead Space series of games. A lot of people were hoping that we were going to get a Dead Space 4 because the DLC for 3, I believe, hints at it. And hints at it heavily, but unfortunately they kind of got caught in a limbo. As right now, at least for the last few years, Visceral has been hard at work on a brand new Star Wars game that's being helmed by Amy Hennig, one of the former developers on Uncharted. So this one's actually kind of connected to our history a little bit because this is one of the first stories we did when the podcast hit Radio SLCC back in the day, is that Amy Hennig had moved over to Visceral to start working on a game. We didn't know what the game was. We didn't find that out until I think a year later when we confirmed that she was also working on a new Star Wars property with Visceral that was approved, since EA had already gotten the big license to be able to do a bunch of Star Wars games in the process, but that hers would be interesting in the fact that it would be like its own story. It wasn't necessarily like where Battlefront was going to be a retelling of stuff, where they had VR titles that were going to be like, oh, you get to be in an X-Wing and all that. This was going to be its own unique story. And unfortunately, now that future is in doubt. The game was being worked on. We can confirm that. But since Visceral has closed down, the project has been moved to EA Vancouver. And right now, everything is roughly a big, fat question mark. We don't know if EA Vancouver will proceed with the project. We don't know if they will proceed as it is currently. Because now they can kind of reserve the right and say, you know what? We don't want to really use these art assets. We don't want to use all the hard work that's been done for the last couple of years. Scrap it. We're going to do our own thing, which is entirely possible for EA Vancouver to do, or they could proceed with it. But then at that point, you'd have to acknowledge that you're getting kind of half of one game and half of another. Because at that point, you have two separate teams working on it. But overall, this has created a lot of doubt and a lot of, disappointment amongst Star Wars fans, in particular Star Wars gamers, who were looking for yet another attempt at telling an individual story like 1313 earlier on in 2012, 2013. Now this one has been canceled too. And I really wish that we knew more on it. In fact, I actually looked up a second article that we had from the co-writer of it. It's not Patrick Sutherland. I want to say Josh something. Oh crap, where is it? Todd Stashwick, who was the co-writer on the new game. Unfortunately, all he gave us was kind of his assessment, which was it was exciting and fun and really funny. That's pretty much all we know about this Visceral project. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up to the panel. Alex, now hearing at least, that this was going to be a new Star Wars game, not necessarily based in the Battlefront universe or anything like that, is it disappointing to you that you will never, at least potentially, never be able to get this in your hands?
Partly, I guess. I don't know. I haven't really played many Star Wars games since, at least of the non-Battlefront variety, since GameCube. But, as to the closing of the studio itself, all I can say is that's a damn shame, but it seems to be the ever-present reality of this industry. Studios seem to come and go just as quickly. They're here today, gone tomorrow. It's kind of a bummer. Sometimes it makes me question why anyone wants to work in this industry.
Well, there's a lot of reasons to question that. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have Aldo Gomez here tonight, but I mean, he would tell you already there's tons of downsides to the concept of being able to work at a studio like this, including the crunch time and the long hours, and the fact that any unique ideas that you come up with are basically the rights of that company to be able to own. It's not a pleasant prospect. I think the worst news out of this, unfortunately, is just the fact that it's a studio that's shutting down. Yet another studio that's shutting down. Not necessarily that they were working on a Star Wars game. I'm not discounting that, but because here's the thing. I know a lot of people were disappointed at that, but the biggest disappointment that I've seen online has been Visceral shutting down, which has shattered any hopes of a Dead Space 4. So at that point, I mean, EA Vancouver, I guess, could just take over for that. But, I mean, is it necessarily going to be a game that we're going to like? I don't know. I actually tried to look up EA Vancouver to see if they had any prominent games under their belt, but couldn't really find anything. It's EA's rebranding of yet another studio that died long ago. So at that point, I mean, what else can you say with that aside from it sucks?
Yeah.
It's just yet another game studio that's fallen by the wayside. Oh, good. We have Romney because I just barely got your text of, oh crap, his internet died. So Romney, let's go ahead and go with you. So what are your thoughts on Visceral Games shutting down? Are you more disappointed that it's another game studio, or were you actually looking forward to either Dead Space or this new Star Wars game they were working on?
Honestly, I didn't really have much investment when it comes to the Star Wars games. I mean, I tried getting into the new expanded universe with some of the novels, and it does sound like an interesting idea, but I can't really say that I'm surprised given that this is the House of Mouse we're dealing with. It's probably a case of, oh, well, we need to do something to unify the brand. Plus, what worries me is, EA statement of, oh, well, this story-driven single-player game, we're going to expand it to a broader experience. And I'm just like, great, you're going to pull a Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, and we actually do have an update in the article. EA has since let us know that Amy Hennig has been in discussions with EA about her next move. And it looks like as for how much of the already completed development would carry over, we will be continuing to use a great deal of the work that has been done to date. The assets of the game that has already been built will be the foundation of a new game.
Yeah.
So basically what that means, unfortunately, to you guys is if you were excited for this game, great, but it's not coming out. Basically, this is going to be the foundation for something new based on the same artwork, based on the same assets.
With multiplayer elements shoehorned in for no good reason, because this is EA.
Yeah, probably. And really quick, I'm gonna do a really quick search while we kind of go into additional thoughts, because the last time I did a Google search for EA Vancouver, nothing came up aside from, if you want a job, Alex, do you want a job in the gaming industry?
Not really.
You get to work way more hours than you currently are. I think like the bare minimum for a game dev is 60.
And that depends on what type of title you're working on as well.
Exactly. The only thing that comes up is EA Canada, and the games that they have developed are not promising. The
Need for Speed, High Stakes,
Def Jam, Fight for New York, Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects, EA Replay, EA Playground, and Medal of Honor Heroes 2.
Yeah, and then they've also got a bunch of the EA Sports titles under their
they've
roster.
been working on that.
Looks like they work on the FIFA series.
And the NHL, NCAA, NBA Live, Knockout Kings.
So these guys basically got handed all of the secondary stuff. I mean, they've got NBA Street, but I don't see NBA. No, NBA Live's in there, but I don't see Madden. So yeah, Madden NFL 2007, they worked on the Wii version. So
that's promising.
This is a company. This is a company that gets handed scraps. So yeah, this is not promising, guys. I honestly think that this is going to turn out to be it's going to blow up in their face. Let's put it that way. But again, I want to bring this to you, Romney, because unfortunately I think your internet cut out at that point. But like the biggest disappointment out of this from the community is not necessarily the Star Wars game. It's Dead Space. Dead Space apparently had a lot of people waiting for that fourth game. Some people are in disagreement on like whether or not the third was as great as it could have been, or because I think the game that's considered the best in the series is the second one. But then the third happened, and that was actually where some of the EA elements started to get integrated into it. And so a lot of people have debate on whether or not that's a good game, but they were still waiting for the fourth one. And that's done. I mean, EA technically owns the rights to it, because I'm pretty sure they own the rights to any IP that Visceral worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you could see a return of Dead Space, but it's definitely not going to be a Visceral Dead Space.
Nope. It would probably be, another pointlessly multiplayer game based on a single-player campaign. Basically, EA, I wouldn't be surprised if EA basically tried to make Battlefield Dead Space.
Pretty much, yeah, that kind of actually makes sense, which is disappointing for some, because I know that a lot of people that bring this up as a suggestion for me and Alex's YouTube channel is like, this redefined horror especially like sci-fi horror.
Oh,
I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I've seen it. I just think it's warped.
yeah,
But
that's a whole separate debate, mainly. And again, coming from someone who, studies horror and kind of studies the psychology of it, people tend to conflate a lot of terms.
yeah, especially in, correct me if I'm wrong, especially in the horror genre.
Yeah, especially thanks to the departure. It all started with Resident Evil 4. That's where the confusion started.
Yeah.
Because everyone wanted to basically be like Resident Evil 4. And yeah, I mean, I bet you if there is another Dead Space, they're probably going to say, hey, let's try to copy Resident Evil 7.
Something like that.
I mean, at the very least, they would be back on track for the genre, though.
By the way, a listener actually did ask that specifically of you, Romney, if you had actually played Resident Evil 7.
I haven't, and I was actually waiting for the edition that was announced, the Gold Edition with all the DLC to be announced, because, again, fool me once, Capcom with Street Fighter 4. Again, I bought Street Fighter 4 at launch, then I saw the announcement of Super Street Fighter 4 and lost my mind. I'm just like, okay, Capcom, you're not going to get me this time. I know you've got a Gold Edition coming, so I'm going to wait for the Gold Edition of Resident Evil 7.
Alex, I think he's making fun of me because I got Street Fighter 5. Well, I deserve that one. You can't lie on that one. I kind of deserve it considering what I was walking into.
Yeah, and so I want to play it. One is that I like sleep, and two, it's a case of, yeah, I'm going to wait for the fancy edition that has all the DLC in one place so that I can just get it all in one purchase instead of the piecemeal model.
No, I'll even admit, like that Resident Evil 7 DLC, we've been waiting a good long while for it, and as soon as we got the date and the addition of a new DLC pack, my wife is probably more excited than me, and it's simply because she gets to sleep at night. This doesn't bother her that much. This is going to be coming out in December. My Christmas is officially ruined, people. Speaking of Prozac budget, that sucks. Anyway, no, I'm excited for it. Any story that Resident Evil is going to hand me, I'll take. Anyway, moving on into the next story that we have. Again, more depressing stuff because I have a feeling that if we had Aldo Gomez tonight, he would be crying a little bit because I do know that he has a passion for these types of games. Loves his amiibos, loved Disney Infinity when it was up and running. And I do know that he was at least somewhat interested at one point on picking this game up. But unfortunately, LEGO Dimensions is going to be ending a year early. So right now they're in their second year, their year 2 development, which was going to be more 80s based. But unfortunately, money isn't there. And the genre itself is just not picking up any speed whatsoever. I think even Skylanders is now officially being affected by the lack of people going out and buying the toys, which is really what makes the genre marketable. And unfortunately, it's just not there for LEGO Dimensions. So they've officially announced that they will be ending. They actually had a year 3 in development. That is officially done. Year 2 will be where this thing ends. In fact, I believe the game has been... It's either been discontinued or it will be discontinued in the coming months. You're not going to get new toys or anything like that, which is sad because they actually, so their current line actually incorporated characters like Beetlejuice, Gizmo, E.T. There was even so the third year was planned and reportedly would have had fan favorite villain Lord Vortek come in, a Minecraft expansion, which probably would have expanded its market significantly. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. So unfortunately, this is the end of LEGO Dimensions. Now, I hate to be the guy that twists the knife, but I kind of saw this coming. Because I already feel like Romney's out in the or not Romney, but Aldo's out in the ether ready to smack me upside the head. But as soon as I saw Infinity die, I literally saw LEGO Dimensions death written on the wall. It was going to happen because if Infinity couldn't make it work, if Disney couldn't make it work, there's no way LEGO was going to be able to do it, especially when they have to carve into their own assets to be able to make these toys in the first place. So I'm just going to open this up to the panel. Did you guys were hoping that LEGO Dimensions would last longer? Is this expected? Where are you guys standing on it?
I've never done anything with Lego Dimensions, so I guess I didn't have any expectations. I'm just kind of wondering what is it about these sort of toy market game integration things that all seem to keep failing. I mean, we've seen Disney Infinity go down. I guess you say Skylanders is beginning to waver, and now Lego Dimensions. So I'm just wondering what is it about this market that doesn't seem to be working for anybody right now?
Skylanders is the pillar, roughly, because Skylanders was the one I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Romney, but Skylanders did this first, and they got the intrigue. They got the boom when that happened. But then when you had Infinity get into the mix, and then later, this doesn't officially count, but a lot of people have taken amiibos as being Nintendo's response to this market. Again, it's not really.
It is, and it is, and it isn't. It's not like a full-on response where they have like a full-on Smash Brothers game with the amiibo, but it is the same case of a collectible you buy in stores that gives you content in your game.
Yeah, and the only reason I would say it's not is because Nintendo thought outside the box and actually said, okay, we like this concept. Now let's try and find additional stuff that we can do with it. So not like the initial advertisement of the amiibo was play your favorite character in Smash Brothers. But then they went, oh, wait, we can do a bunch of special edition stuff. And that led into Splatoon being able to get the specific guns, I can't talk tonight, the specific avatars, which led into the Zelda stuff that you could do with Twilight Princess and later on with Breath of the Wild. Metroid allowing for a whole different mode on Samus Returns.
And then you have the Fire Emblem stuff, like Codename Steam. You could use the first wave of Fire Emblem amiibos to add those characters to your party. They repeated it in Fire Emblem Fates, where you can use pretty much all the Fire Emblem amiibo up to that point prior to the release of Corrin to get characters like Robin, Ike, Lucina, and Marth into your party.
Yeah, so at that point, I would say, like, I don't want to call Nintendo as part of this just because I think they kind of saw that writing on the wall and said, okay, well, let's find other uses for this to incorporate it into other games that we are making. So like I was saying earlier, Skylanders is the pillar. They got the boom, and then Infinity happened shortly after, and that led into Lego Dimensions. So unfortunately, if Infinity couldn't make it work, then Lego Dimensions was kind of writing on the wall. And even Skylanders, to my knowledge, is starting to feel that because kind of like the Harmonix, I can't remember the other makers, boom, eventually people stop buying the controller guitars or the guitar controllers and the band controllers kind of thing. And that's like the crux of this model and why it works. So like that's the issue.
It's looking at it very much is indicative of what happened with the Guitar Hero, the Rock Bands, and all of those titles because, well, those peripherals get expensive, especially when you have a change in console generations like we recently had. Because although, yes, Infinity and Dimensions were available for both 360 and the 4 and 1, it's very much one of those, that's kind of when those things tend to fall out of favor because the Guitar Hero stuff was big back in the heyday of the PS2. PS3 came out, you had people saying, oh, well, now I have to buy this crap again for another console. Screw that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's already where they said, screw it. I'm not willing to pay for this stuff again, especially with those guitar controllers. They were expansive.
So, especially when you consider that these are parents that are usually buying these things, and, well, parents are going to get fed up with very predatory trends. I mean, we've seen this happen time and time again. I mean, that's why every major trading card game has gone through its cycles of recession, and only like that's why you only hear basically the main three, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon, because they were able to survive that, but not so much, the Marvel Versus, the My Little Pony card game, which still exists miraculously.
I should be surprised, but I'm really not.
Yeah, but point being, this is a marketing thing that happens where, if you build something on a gimmick alone, that gimmick is going to wear out after a while, especially when you kind of reach the limits of what you can do. And Nintendo, rather than making a whole game around their amiibo, just simply chose to treat their amiibo as basically DLC that you can buy in store and you get a nice little figurine. They basically took the kind of stuff that GameStop would give you and turned it into its own product, which, granted, means you don't have to go to GameStop to get a figurine of a character you like.
Exactly. So there unfortunately really isn't anything else to report on this. It's just that Lego Dimensions is just going to get slowly phased out. It's kind of a crying shame. If I was ever gonna get into this genre, Lego Dimensions was probably the way that I was going to get into it, because I do love the TT games, Lego games. And so it's the same developer that made them. And on top of that, they did so many homages to get to movies like Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, like I just said, Beetlejuice, Gremlins. They had so much other stuff on the horizon that it is sad, but unfortunately it's just going to get phased out over time. And you're going to see those toys hit the bargain bin pretty damn quick.
Yeah, it's the same reason why barcode reader toys fell out of favor as well, because I remember when that was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and move on into the next story that we have tonight, which is not necessarily a bad one. This is probably the one that can cure us of the Prozac problem right now. It's just silly because Sony has decided to answer a little bit of a problem that a lot of people didn't think necessarily was happening. I kind of did, because I've kind of wondered about it. But basically, Sony has announced a new controller for children. So basically, they're going to actually do a mini PS4 controller for kids. Being that a few people have... I know that this has actually been a complaint of the modern day controllers, especially, where unfortunately they're more built with an adult in mind, but not necessarily built with kids in mind. This is why in a lot of cases, the nostalgia of the NES controller and the Super NES controller has held for so long. It's because we literally grew up with the dang things. So Sony's answer to that is to create a mini controller for kids that this one, the model that we have the official picture for, is corded, but they're also working on a potential wireless model that can also work with the PS4 also. And the best way that I know how to describe it for those who are listening to the podcast instead of joining us live, I'm just going to go ahead and put the screen up for those who are joining us live. It basically looks like a Wii Pro or a Wii Pro controller that you would plug into the Wiimote for like virtual console games.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not saying the design's bad. I actually do like it, especially for baby hands. I'm sorry, the joke had to be made eventually. This controller is made for baby hands. Yes, literally, it is made for baby hands, and that's the intention. So I actually do like the idea that Sony's put a little bit of, Nintendo forethought into this and said, yeah, we have this market that we haven't really catered to. And we have a bunch of little kids games that they could play, but not really because the controller's too big for them. I've already seen my daughter deal with that problem. She's 2. So I kind of like that they did this for anybody who either A, didn't like the design, or B, they can't really reach all the buttons. But I guess the first person that I want to ask is Alex, since, you're about to be a PS4 owner in the next little bit. Do you think this is a good idea or a bad idea for Sony?
I guess it's okay. I'm kind of curious why it's wired, unless it's a cost-cutting thing. I think kids might yank on the controller cords or trip on them more likely, but I don't know.
There's the wired, like I said, the picture in the article has a wired version. There is going to be a wireless version.
Okay.
So you will be able to hook it up to your PS4, but I think they're more doing that just in case, your kid's not going to be a kid for very long. They'll be able to transition to the controller pretty quickly.
Okay, I guess. So doesn't seem like a terrible idea. I'm guessing it just means it'll be a bit more durable than a typical wireless PS3 controller. And if it's something for kids, then I guess it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like it's going to be retailing for $30 US and $40 Canadian. So you'll be able to get that available. And we don't have a release date for the mini controller just yet, but I would have a feeling that with this announcement, it's probably going to be due by the holiday season. So that's not, I don't think that's out of left field to expect. But yeah, and the only difference that I've seen between the wired and the wireless version, I guess, in the central part, there because I got to put a battery in there, it'll be a little thicker. But again, the kids are not going to worry about that. They're going to be holding it up at the ends. Overall, I like this idea, simply because I have a kid and I've already seen her struggle with the controllers that we have. She can only she has to put it down and then just kind of play it like the arcade. So this will be an easy transition if she ever wants to game. Romney, what are your thoughts on it?
Honestly, I think it's actually kind of a decent idea because I remember I ran into the same issue with my PS3 when I was trying to introduce my niece, who at the time was around, I'd say 3 or 4. I was trying to get her into Sonic the Hedgehog because my brother showed her Sonic Lost World, so I figured, okay, I'll boot up my Genesis collection and see if she'd like the classic Sonic the Hedgehog games, and I ran into the same issue. She had a hard time with the controller. And there's a comment on the IGN article that also brings up another interesting consideration as to why there may be a wired version, and that's the case of input lag. It could be a case of, okay, maybe having it wired would minimize the amount of input lag, so that way you don't have a kid dealing with a delayed response, which can hurt the experience and hurt the possibility of having them being a customer throughout their life as a gamer. And so that could be another reason. Some parents that have commented and said, oh, yeah, it makes it easier to find the controller, so that way it's not just strewn about wherever kids may leave it. It's attached to the console. Granted, there's still the trade-off of kid getting up and yanking the whole console with them. But honestly...
we dealt with those as kids, too. So
yeah, and honestly, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, they're copying Nintendo, but, well, that's kind of the idea is, okay, Sony is basically trying to make themselves the more appealing console, especially for the upcoming holiday season, where it's just like, hey, parents, instead of dropping another $300 on a console exclusive to your kids, buy this controller with maybe these kid-friendly games for the console you already have, and kind of undercut the sales there. It's a pretty common sales tactic. Even Nintendo has done it from time to time. And so, honestly, I think it's a pretty decent idea, especially if it's a more durable controller that is easier to hold. I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, some people think, oh, yeah, they're copying Nintendo, or, oh, yeah, this is stupid. But honestly, given, and I'm sure, like, as you've seen, Adam, and as I've seen with my niece, yeah, it's kind of necessary. Because, again, the reason it wasn't a problem for us growing up is because, okay, well, we started out with the simple controllers. We just literally grew along with the controllers. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, for as much as people, I've seen current day gamers want to criticize the NES controller, the NES controller was like that thick. So it was not hard for a kid to get their hands across. And on top of that, there are a couple of reasons that I could think of that they've gone the directions that they have. Okay, because I do know that there is a wireless version in development. But here's the thing: having a wired version or a wireless version, which one do you think is more expensive? The wireless version always. So we're seeing the retail version, Alex, for the wired one. So it's cheaper, which is already incorporating the fact that it's a kid holding it, not just in the fact that, it's made for baby hands, but it's also made for, that one kid who's going to have a temper tantrum and can't control themselves and are going to throw it across the room. They're durable.
Yeah.
Fact, I may just buy like a couple of these for a best friend of mine. Moving on. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that you can account for this being a cheaper alternative, but also specifically catered to kids. A, you're not going to lose the controllers. B, you're not going to have to worry about replacing the controllers because they're going to be more durable. They're going to be able to take a lot more abuse, and they're going to be cheaper just in case you have to. So I actually do like the idea for it. But the other thing, too, for all the people that want to scream like, this is just copying Nintendo, if there was ever another company amongst the big three right now that actually would go this route, it would be Sony.
Yeah, Sony is basically what Nintendo would be if Nintendo was actually cool.
So in a lot of cases, like a lot of people see it as an insult when Sony and Microsoft go, oh, we love Nintendo because they cater to the kids. Well, Nintendo does cater to the kids and the families. What's the other company that does it? Sony. Why? Because Sony's a big conglomerate of media. So they already do cater to families in their other outlets. So at that point, it makes a lot of sense for them to start catering to families in this way too. As much as I know that people want to make this argument, Microsoft is going that direction. I'm not denying that they are. They are going that direction. But they're still catering to that main market they have, which has always been since the 360, adult gamers.
Yep.
So they're going to continue to cater to that market, and it's more likely that they'll probably come up with something like this last. The next one on the list would have been Sony. I don't have any doubts on that.
Yeah, looking at this, I also just find it kind of funny that the company making this, they've worked with Sony before, but they specialize with like fighting sticks and control and various controllers. And so I'm thinking, okay, if there ever was a company that would make something that's meant to be handled by kids, it would be a company that makes fighting sticks. Because when you look at high-level play, I mean, there's a reason fighting sticks made by other companies allow you to switch out the buttons, is because it gets intense.
You and me will agree. Like, the sticks on this thing look really good. So, I mean,
but
I might want to just mess around with it myself.
Well, yeah, I'm just talking since they make fighting sticks, as in the controllers meant to mimic arcade fighting cabinets. Yeah. Look at any Evo match. You can see how intense it can get, even with high-level players that know not to smash every button with the force of Thor. But even then, those controllers, they get beat up. And so, definitely a good company to make a controller meant for kids.
Exactly. I also do like one of the comments that's left in the IGN article for it, which is basically Zoolander. What is this? A controller for ants? Yes, it is. So yeah, not really a whole lot else to add on this, but I can guarantee you we're going to start seeing these controllers in store shelves this holiday season, especially with a lot of big releases for kids. This is definitely going to happen because Sony has to, unfortunately, counter I think they actually do have to counter the first official holiday season with the Switch. And I think that's going to be a thing for them. So that actually wraps up the tech portion of the evening. Let's go ahead and move on into the entertainment portion, which is a little bit shorter than usual, but that's all right because we get to start things off with a little bit of the silly. Okay, guys, I love our audience, especially the brand new audience that's listening with us, but let's bring you up to speed. We don't normally talk politics on this podcast. I like to make this podcast a safe haven for those who don't want to talk about it. It doesn't mean that we don't always not talk about it. It's just we have to have a little bit of the geek thrown in. And in this case, a listener submitted this to us as well as Alex. And, well, it's got loads of geek in it. So this is halfway unfortunate because we don't want to hear about this, but the White House has a bunch of people that try to jump the fence for whatever reason. The reason could easily be their life isn't going the way that they want, and unfortunately they want Secret Service to gun them down. It could also be that, I don't remember this actually happening with the Obama presidency as it did for the Clintons, because Chelsea had a little bit of it, but occasionally you'll have, fanboys or fangirls of the first family's children and trying to either get an autograph or try to play with them or things like that. So you get lots of jumpers of the White House fence. In fact, some would actually make the claim that considering that the Secret Service has secured the area, it's not quite as secure as you might think. Especially for a guy who decided to jump the fence dressed as a Pikachu. Yep, you heard me right. It's not the first ever debut of Detective Pikachu. That'll come later. A man dressed as a Pokemon character, Pikachu, attempted to infiltrate the White House on Tuesday, where he was promptly caught by Secret Service. Curtis Combs, he's admitted to be Curtis Combs, 36, of Somerset, Kentucky. He jumped the concrete barrier on the outer perimeter of the south grounds of the White House complex and was quickly arrested. According to the police report, Combs did tell officers that he was unarmed before climbing the fence and ignoring signs that marked the area as restricted. He willfully ignored them. And he also did ignore multiple commands to stop climbing. I believe his reasons were simply, let's see, where are they?
It says here he was wanting to record a video of him jumping the fence in his outfit and post it to YouTube.
Yeah. So he wanted to post this video on YouTube just to say that he did it. And, the Secret Service didn't take that very kindly at all. What's funny about this, though, is that after the arrest, he did tell law enforcement that he wanted to come back to the White House with his son for a tour.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's not happening at all. Like, I don't think you guys get this, but you piss off the Secret Service once, they watching for you.
Mhm.
All right. Especially when you get past all of their security. They're not happy about it. So yeah, just I'm filled with flashbacks of the guy who invaded a Trump rally when he wasn't even president in a Sailor Moon costume to try and drown out the speaker at that time. I don't think it was Trump. I think it was somebody else speaking. And then at that point was promptly removed by security before the Trump fans, literally ran him over. But I'm filled with thoughts of this. But the one thing that we all must take into consideration is this crap happens all the time. I'm pretty sure that this is like the 80% of the Secret Service's day where somebody tries to sneak into the place, whether they have malicious intent or not.
Yep.
So, I mean, what else can we say from this aside from, hey, major props, dude? You got there. He got over the fence. He got into the White House lawn, but he didn't make it too far after that.
I think I saw like a picture of the guy, not on the article, just somewhere, and I was a little disappointed because when I heard the headline, I literally envisioned a guy like dressed in a full-on Pikachu costume.
Like a full-on Disney, Pikachu-esque looking outfit, right?
I mean, yeah. Granted, that'd be probably really hard to.
That would be a feat to climb the fence with that thing.
But it still would have been freaking amazing and hilarious if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm just reminded. Wasn't there like a Pokemon Go player who was like dressed up that like tried scaling the fence because there was a Pokemon on the White House lawn? I'm just thinking, okay, was this guy thinking Ash got captured?
I think there was something like that. Guys, there were so many Pokemon Go stories back in the day. We couldn't possibly cover them all. But we heard incidents of people getting trying to get into a police department, in like literally sneaking into the storerooms of a Walmart and Home Depot to get Pokemon. Yeah, jumping the fence. I'm pretty sure that happened.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, just. That's all I could say is just, oi.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, at that point, I want to applaud the guy because, again, like I was kind of like you, Alex, where I wanted to envision like they got this full-on Pikachu costume and they literally climbed the fence in it. So at that point, man, I'll give you props for making an inch above that fence. But hey, you did it. So. Curtis, I hope it was worth it because I'm pretty sure you're on every watch list imaginable now.
Yeah.
And your son and any future kids that you have. What people don't realize with this is like the Secret Service. Yeah, they're documenting your butt, like your butt, your wife's butt, everybody in that particular one. And I know that sounded horribly wrong and I apologize.
No butt goes undocumented in their eyes.
I think we just found our episode title. It was just like last week's podcast actually officially made it today because I've been having upload issues with Podomatic for a good portion of it. And somebody actually did reach out to me and ask, why did you name it that way? And I don't know if you guys actually saw the episode title, but I can't even officially remember what it was, but it was actually inspired by a listener who listened to it later. So a Weinstein Tamagotchi is not recommended. And so the reason that happened was a listener literally reached out to me and went, so you probably would recommend a Tamagotchi in the form of Harvey Weinstein, would you? Like, we have an episode title right here. So, and we've officially, Romney's lost it. Alex, not so much, but.
Oh, man.
Yes, I would actually confirm that a Weinstein Tamagotchi is not recommended, and neither is.
Honestly, if that existed, I think people would buy it just so they could watch it die.
So Alex would buy it for me, is what you're basically saying.
They'd be perfect for you.
Oh, Hey, Drac, how are you working on that Tamagotchi? Oh, it died? Okay, cool. That's exactly how that should work. So yeah, I think so you want to give me the title one more time, Romney, so I can write it down.
No but goes undocumented.
Yes, no but goes undocumented. Okay, all right, we have it officially. There's our episode title. There's not really anything else to add on this aside from it's just your usual. Somebody tried to jump the fence with a backpack. The backpack got searched for bombs. Obviously, it wasn't filled. But this guy does not realize the amount of crap that he's just injected into his life.
Yep. I guess the moral of the story is, if you get the urge to jump the fence to the White House, remember this simple phrase. Don't.
Not even Donald Trump is worth it, my friends. I would pretty much say any president isn't worth it.
Nope.
Just wait till you get invited.
Yeah. And even then, it's very much one of those, yeah, like, if you actually make the effort to get invited, okay, that means something. Like, okay, it means you actually got the president's attention, hopefully for something great. Like, I don't know, maybe you're a soldier, or maybe you're some sort of athlete.
You didn't insult him on Twitter.
Yeah, or you're some sort of celebrity that didn't insult him on Twitter.
And didn't refuse his invitation. Yeah, so, I mean, at that point, I'd rather, get into the White House that way. I don't want to have to even think about trying to climb that fence. No. That already doesn't sound like a good idea. And then on top of that, knowing that at least 20 armed guards are going to be on my butt the second I land, that's not really all that worth it.
Yeah, and so and no matter what you say, like, oh, I was looking for this, or oh, I was trying to do this, or oh, I was trying to steal the Declaration of Independence, like in that Nicolas Cage movie. Not worth it. No excuse you give them is going to change the fact that once you try it, you're screwed. They're gonna basically watch you until the day you die.
I'm sorry. Somebody just sent a private message from listening to this, just saying, I hope that one of the guards said to him, "Go ahead and try to thunder shock me now, mother effer." Oh, jeez. I'm so sorry, Roman.
Yeah. No, it just means that, okay, here's the answer. Secret Service agents, they're ground types.
Quick, Secret Service, use dig! It was super effective.
They use agility.
Yeah, that'll work too.
And quick attack.
This is officially broke us. This is classic days of the podcast, guys. This is
tackle and pursuit. So they even got some dark elements.
Yeah,
there you go.
Probably a bunch of fighting type moves like reversal and.
I want art of that, by the way. I want to actually see somebody draw like a dude just trying to get over the fence, and then he's got like 20 guys around him, and that one guy is like trying to shock me now, mother effer.
Or alternately, Secret Service Diglets.
There you go. Actually, you know what? I want that because I want to see like the. In fact, you know what? I don't want the normal shades. I want the Squirtle Squad. Squirtle shades on them. Little earpieces going down them. You don't even know where they're going.
Okay, that needs to be a thing in the actual anime where if they create like some sort of analog for America, it's like, oh yeah, the president's protected by Secret Service Diglets.
That would be amazing. that after all is what the Diglet Tunnel is for. It's like, oh, we need new recruits. Somebody go out to the Diglet Tunnel. Okay, we probably better end this one, otherwise we're going to be getting silly the entire time. Oh, excuse me. So let's go ahead and move on into the, unfortunately, final story that we have tonight, but it's a big one because Netflix has been making a lot of announcements recently. Okay. I'm still trying to laugh. I'm still trying to shrug off all the laughing. Netflix has been making a lot of announcements this year. In particular, 2 seasons of Voltron have happened. In fact, I haven't even gotten to the most recent episodes of Voltron just yet. They released the Castlevania series. They've released a number of movies as well as Netflix original series anime that have come out. And this is only the beginning. Because Netflix has come out very vocally to let us know kind of their 2018 releases. Let's see. I want to get an official quote for this, but right now, a couple of sites are already reporting that Netflix plans to produce. I'm just going to merge these two stories together. 30 new anime series for release in 2018 as part of its $8 billion budget for developing and producing original television and film content in the in 2018. Not only that, we have 30 anime series and 80 films. 80 original films that are going to be done for Netflix in 2018. And there is actually a number for TV series. I wasn't able to secure it because one site reports that it's like this number, and then another one says it's higher. And I think it's just because, unfortunately, we have these big bombastic claims and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But already, guys, 80 original films, 30 original anime. The bare minimum that I was seeing for TV series was another 30. So that's a lot of crap for Netflix to be working on.
Yep.
In this major budget.
Yeah, looking at the article that Anime News Network is referring to, which comes from The Verge, it's basically part of their goal to have 50% of their library be original content. That's a lot.
It really is. We don't necessarily have all of the titles that they're going to be working on. With the anime, we do. With the films, we don't necessarily have that just yet.
Like, we have a few that have been, like, announced, but even then, they're, like, various, we've got this film by David Ayer, we've got this other film by this other filmmaker, and we have this by this studio.
Scorsese has one, a gangster movie called The Irishman, and it stars Robert De Niro. So, I mean, already that's probably going to be a big one. Let's see. We have one called Bright, which is from
David Ayer.
Oh, is that David Ayer?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have those. For the anime side, we have. If I murder these, then obviously my favorite anime hipster is going to come in and correct me. We have Kyoto Animation's Violet Evergarden, Bones' Ico Incarnation, DLE Inc.'s Sword Guy the Animation, Production IG's Be the Beginning, Leiden Films' Lost Song, Mappa's Kakeguri Science, Saru's Devilman Crybaby, TMS Entertainment's Baki, Satelite's Cannon Busters, Dwarf Studios' Rilakuma, I think is how you say it, and Toei's animation Knights of the Zodiac Saint Seiya.
Yeah, I think you accidentally combined. Yeah, I think you accidentally combined two of them because Science Saru is one studio, and you accidentally dovetailed half of it onto the end of Kakegurui, which is a series that's been making the rounds a little bit.
Yeah. So already we have some pretty big names in there. A retelling of Saint Seiya is a little bit shocking, especially considering I didn't even realize this. Somebody had to bring it to my attention, but the Cyborg 009 new series that actually debuted on Netflix actually does fairly well on it. I haven't seen it yet, mainly because I wasn't the biggest fan of Cyborg 009, but I couldn't acknowledge that it wasn't at least interesting. In this new series, I was kind of worried that it was because it's more CG than anime.
Yeah,
but yeah, a lot of people love it.
Yes, I've heard mixed reviews about it. I know that there are people who are animation fans that love it, but people who are fans of the original manga by Shotaro Ishinomori tend to have some problems with it. And that's just announcing the stuff that they've licensed, but they're also going to be funding their own original stuff. So who knows? We may end up getting such delightful gems like Neo Yokio Season 2.
Probably. And I don't even know where Voltron's going to land in there, because I know Season 4. I haven't seen the episodes yet, but I've already been told that it hints at a Season 5. Castlevania Season 2 is going to be another. I don't know if these would qualify under anime. They'd probably qualify under the TV series.
Well, that's kind of where we're starting to kind of split hairs in terms of the definition of anime, which subreddits have erupted into flame wars over such questions, so probably best not to get into it here.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too much into this, but I mean, you already had awesome content that was coming out that we knew of. Like, we had the Marvel content because we had the Defenders earlier this year. We're going to get Punisher next month. And then I think the next one in their list is Jessica Jones Season 2, followed by Luke Cage Season 2. So, I mean, you already had that stuff. Now we're talking about a bunch of new original properties that are going to get added into that mix. That's a lot of crap Netflix has going on.
Yep. And it's definitely an interesting prospect when you consider, for lack of any better way to say it, kind of how crappy the anime industry is to a lot of the animation studios in Japan. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, things like Netflix may be a way for the anime industry to improve, where given that Netflix is very much of the opinion of, well, we'll release this content when we're good and ready, so don't rush us, even though that sometimes drives their subscribers to piracy, case in point, Little Witch Academia. But it's also a case of, okay, if it's a studio that is designing it as a Netflix series from the get-go, that means they have more time to actually work on the story, more time to work on the animation, and basically more time to plan things out. I mean, the fact we're getting Devilman Baby is a big deal because what a lot of people may not realize is that Devilman Baby is basically meant to be the Hellsing Ultimate for Devilman, where it's a case of, we're going to take the story from the original manga and give it its due diligence, because they haven't been able to do that with Devilman because of how graphic and violent that it is, that it would basically get hit with an X rating if it still existed.
But here's the thing, like, Hellsing compared to Hellsing Ultimate, I actually do like Hellsing Ultimate a lot more. Just given the animation quality and a couple of other aspects of it. So being able to do something with Devilman for that, I'm absolutely stoked for that. But I agree with you. Like, it's going to be a very difficult undertaking. It's probably not going to do very well considering how you're going to have to restrict it on Netflix.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that we need to talk about on this one, this is a big undertaking from Netflix. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but I'm guessing that they're probably the top streaming service right now. And if this is a successful year, I'm throwing this out as a big if, because this 2018 year hasn't happened yet. And on top of that, we don't know if they are already number one. I think it's safe to say if this is a successful year, it either puts them in the number one spot and secures it, or it just plain secures it for them.
Yeah, but there has been a bit of a downside, and it's something I've talked to some people about, and that's kind of what's incentivized them to cancel their Netflix subscriptions is, yeah, we're getting a bunch of original content, but that's not necessarily what the people who use Netflix are paying for. Some of them want those older shows they want to revisit, or those like episodes that they missed out on, stuff like that. And so we're going to definitely run into a bit of a divide where, okay, well, if Netflix is going to go gung-ho with its original content, what is going to stop someone else from basically doing what Netflix is no longer doing? I mean, case in point, Disney is already going ahead of the curve and saying, okay, we're going to make our own service to house our films because, well, the last thing we need is Cinderella being put right next to Devilman Baby.
Well, and on top of that, the we're already seeing a bunch of networks actually taking this initiative. I mean, the biggest example right now that's recent for people is CBS taking the All Access app and putting the first Star Trek series in years behind that paywall. I've already heard talk of NBC doing that with at least one of their new shows in the fall season of 2018.
Yep. Then you also have
their paywall.
Well, yeah, then you also have cable networks going to Amazon where they're like, hey, we'll work a deal with Amazon where, hey, come to Amazon, you can subscribe to our network instead of having to buy an expensive cable package with a bunch of channels that you're never going to watch. And so that's another way the market is shifting. There have been actually some cable channels that now they're doing this. I'm thinking, okay, to use this as an example, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get a cable package, but if I want to watch Walking Dead, I'll go to Amazon, subscribe to AMC, and that's all I want.
I'll admit, one of the things that has actually made me strongly consider, and I'm still on the fence with it, but I mean, as much as we toted our hatred for YouTube's recent actions this year, the YouTube TV service, I got an advertisement for it, and some of the stuff that they were talking about initially doing was already looking very flattering to me. Just in the fact that there were not, again, this is early concept. They haven't really come up with this model yet and put it out onto an announcement paper for people. But when some developers were actually approached on the matter, they actually talked about not even having those packages. Like you get some baseline stuff, but then you basically get to shape your package the way you want. And you know what? This is basically what a lot of people that I've ever known, including myself, have wanted from a cable provider. I look at currently I'm a Comcast subscriber with my wife. The only reason we have it is because my wife just needs her fix of ABC Family, Freeform, whatever you want to call it. But then we just literally look at all of the channels that just don't get watched in this household. Just never get touched. It's like, wow, we could literally be saving like easily 50, $60 on a bill if we just could remove these channels. You can't because yeah, you could cut down to like super basic,
Yeah,
but there are actually channels that have to be included in there.
yeah, and it's actually not even like a cable company thing. It's actually in the law, where it's actually against the law to sell individual channels. And so, and I don't know the specific rationale, and for all I know, it could be a carryover from a much different time. But that's kind of one of those things people need to remember is that, yeah, the reason cable companies do those packages is because they legally can't sell you just one channel.
Exactly. And so for some weird reason, YouTube can actually curtail this because they're an online function. So at that point, if YouTube actually created a means so that I could get rid of like the 20, 30 plus channels that we don't watch, yeah, I'd strongly consider it. I wouldn't even have to think twice on it, given, and that's saying something considering all of the crap we've dealt with from YouTube all this year. But if they actually do what I've been begging the cable providers to do, and I get the argument, Romney, where it's like, this is in the law, but it's definitely something that I wish could have been changed for many, many years. Then at that point, let's get that changed. And this is definitely something that Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all of them actually have to consider in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I honestly, Alex, you've been kind of quiet on this, but I think that if these shows are successful, if this works out, this basically solidifies Netflix's dominance in this market.
Yeah, this will be a huge game changer. From the anime perspective, for me personally, it's, I've been very interested to see if Netflix will start getting into the game of actually producing and cooperating in the production of original new anime. Doesn't have to be like original, like completely. It can obviously be source material based, but I'm just saying to kind of either be a part of those production committees in Japan or break up the production committee system a little bit to kind of shake up the industry just a little bit. The frustrating thing about Netflix only as a licensor is Netflix doesn't follow the simulcast model like Sentai Filmworks or Funimation do, where they'll release it all to a site like Crunchyroll on a weekly basis as the episode airs in Japan. Netflix, you have to,
it's more
wait.
of a legacy service.
Yeah, you have to wait for the whole show to become available. But even then, they, like with Little Witch Academia, which was 24 episodes, they split it into 2 sub-seasons, essentially, even though it's one 24-episode series. Netflix had the weird idea to split in 24 episodes. This is why Netflix sucks as a licensor, but to see them potentially as a producer where we're not going to have to wait. We're not going to have to wait for the legal license and not have to resort to piracy, and at the same time not have to suffer a poorly rushed quality anime. That's intriguing to me.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I guess the only argument that I have on the matter that I think could go that way, like where they actually do get a seat at the table and they actually do discuss this stuff enough to change it. I mean, I hate to use this analogy, but with money comes power, and with power comes influence. So then at that point, I think if this year was successful, Alex, that it wouldn't happen in 2018, but maybe in 2019, you'd actually start seeing Netflix representatives getting involved in there and saying, yeah, we need to change the conditions because we need to keep this cash cow going. But like, do I see that happening during the 2018 year? No, not right off. I think they're going to wait and see if this year is going to be successful. And then at that point, if it's a success, then yeah, they're going to want that clout. They're going to want that influence. They may even start working with the producers directly. Like they won't even worry about the corporate influences behind companies like Toei. They might just say, we want to work with the producer directly and we want to see what you want to do. Do I actually see them going past just being kind of a financier for it? Probably not. That's probably the easiest role that they can have in any kind of film or TV making, is that they're the guys doling out the checks. So that's probably the way that they'll stay. But if they get that money and they get that clout, yeah, they could start changing things in the industry, at least in the companies that they work with directly. Is it the big companies? I don't think so. I don't think they would really work with Toei. Toei's got some solid clout in their own way. So it would take a big undertaking, like a series where Netflix was willing to dole out the mega cash to get Toei involved, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely does make you wonder. And here's the thing: the downside of this, unfortunately, is if it's successful, then yeah, they're the front runner. Netflix is the best provider of stuff, which may not necessarily be the right thing that we want, but it's definitely where they want to go with it. But I also wanted to get into your stuff, Romney, because you're exactly right. Because I think you were the one that brought up the point. Like, we got the promise, I think earlier this year or late last year, where they were going to focus more on legacy content. They weren't really going to worry about contracting the big movies, and instead securing older series for that syndication stuff, because that's where they wanted to take the company from there on in. I don't know if this necessarily pays for that, but it's definitely something that they haven't done.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is that back when they made that kind of promise, this was before, well, and it's kind of the big major things that kind of helped cement this was, well, the debut of shows like Stranger Things and Voltron, Legendary Defender. Though, I mean, given how big Stranger Things got and stuff like Orange is the New Black, that pretty much made them think, okay, maybe this is something else. And then they clinched the Marvel deal, and then they clinched deal after deal after deal, thinking, okay, clearly this approach is a lot more profitable.
Not only that, but the way I understand it, Netflix is being approached by directors for a number of things. I wasn't ever able to confirm this, but I believe the director or the original creator of Breaking Bad created another offshoot in that universe and was pitching it to Netflix.
I think you're thinking of Better Call Saul.
No. This was going to be another thing aside from Better Call Saul. But they wanted to do it strictly in the Netflix model just to see if it would work, because Breaking Bad was hot as crap at the time. But it never went through, because this was still where Netflix was in the experimental portion. And they were just like, well, we want to take these projects on, but we can't risk too much here. And I think at that point I think House of Cards was up and Orange is the New Black was going to be the next thing coming. So already they had controversial shows that could have easily failed for them. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Orange is the New Black is still very popular on Netflix, and I think House of Cards it's either still running or it's since ended. But it had its own clout back in the day, but now they've made room for the Marvel stuff, Voltron, Stranger Things. Is it Neo Yokio? Is the most recent thing that they've released anime-wise.
Yes, much to the chagrin of, well, the entire world.
Well, because you had Neo Yokio, which I believe you have a review for, and you're not a fan.
I don't have a review, but it can be summarized thusly. They basically tried to make an anime out of Jaden Smith's Twitter account.
Yeah. And then I know that a bunch of people have recommended Knights of Sidonia to me, which is still labeled a Netflix original series. And I don't know, maybe at some point I'll actually get around to it. But I mean, already Netflix is making a lot of really good decisions, and it's just going bigger and better from there.
Mm-hmm.
So final thoughts before we wrap things up for the evening. Because Netflix is that's like the biggest announcement that I think Netflix could make, especially considering I don't think all of the quarterlies are in just yet.
Yep. We're definitely at an interesting point in the entertainment industry where, well, the old guard is on its way out, and we're now at the dawn of a new method of content creation. Now, granted, some people may argue, are we going to see a return to things like the studio system, which I kind of doubt, but I can see where it comes from, where if you have Netflix funding production of the films and then also controlling the method of distribution, well, I mean, it could be argued as somewhat of a studio system, but that's also why we had the recently averted writer's strike, where that was affecting the way writers were paid for series that they were working on because of all of these changes. So definitely going to be an interesting few years in terms of where entertainment's going to be.
Well, the addition you also have to consider in that regard is that, when you bring up the old school studio system, those studios were damn huge. We still have influence from them to this day. Warner Brothers, Metro Golden Mayer, is it Mayer?
Goldwyn
Meyer.
Mayer.
MGM, roughly. Universal, although Universal's been bought out a couple of times since then. So you already have the big studios there. And the one thing I see not anchoring another era like that is that this era is kind of ruled by the small studios. And then at that point, they this is from filmmakers that have worked for the big guys and already don't like the level of influence that they've had on their individual projects and have wanted to remain individual. So I don't know if I necessarily agree that this would be the return of that studio system.
True, but at the
start, it might be the start of this one, but I don't see them ever becoming the big conglomerate studios that we have today.
To be fair, that is what they said about United Artists when United Artists was founded, where it broke away. We're like, we're going to go and do our own thing, only to basically become the very thing it fought to get away from. And I remember this was specifically a plot point in the film Cantinflas, when they were talking about the efforts to produce their version of Around the World in 80 Days and all of the turmoil surrounding that. And so while some people think, yeah, this may be a new like rogue form of filmmaking, until Netflix basically becomes the new large studio, like as it's very much one may die, but there's always another one ready to take its place.
Okay, I'll give you that. Because I didn't even consider that, but I'm still gonna stay true to my viewpoint on the matter. I think a lot of those studios wish to remain small, and the other thing that helps with that is that now we have the online part of that equation. Now we're having filmmakers via online sites that are actually starting to influence that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for crying out loud, how many people actually thought we were going to get a movie from what's his bucket? The Room.
Tommy Wiseau.
We didn't think we were going to get a film directed from him that was going to get some kind of release, and now we have a biopic on him.
Yeah, to be fair, that's probably not the best example. A better example would be maybe looking at the Smosh movies. Because unlike the Fred movies, where they were basically railroaded through to capitalize on the short-lived popularity, the Smosh movies were kind of the closest to it, where it's like, okay, it's the two original founders of Smosh getting together to make a movie. A movie of very questionable quality that is on the IMDb top 100 worst movies list. But then you also have other movies that were part of the draw of YouTube Red. Granted, they've yet to actually make one that's, not, soulless. But again, we're reaching that point of where even YouTube is going to try to get in the market of, okay, let's see if we find maybe these filmmakers we have on our website. Let's see if we can rope them into doing something. I mean, I doubt this would happen given the nature of him as the YouTuber, but I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube tried headhunting Thomas Ridgewell to have him direct a feature-length comedy. I doubt he would do it because his style of humor doesn't translate to feature-length, but it's one of those things of, yeah, that I wouldn't be surprised if they tried going after him.
But it does actually make you consider, like, what do we consider into like filmmakers like, say, James Rolfe? Do they now officially qualify as the upper echelons of indie?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. So at that point, you could literally look at them as, the George Lucas before George Lucas happened kind of thing.
Yeah. But then you also have to consider the success of companies like Rooster Teeth, where at first they were basically just making machinima videos, and now they have not only an anime series that actually airs in Japan, for one, they also have a bunch of a live-action series that's a live-action drama that actually got a lot of traction as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where media right now is a big fat question mark. We really don't know the direction of anything right now because anything could literally change it. But it's definitely going to be an exciting thing to watch. Like, if you're interested in this kind of a competition, like I know Romney is going to be, this is going to be something to watch for the coming years to see what actually comes out of it. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening because that's all the stories we got. If people want to reach out to ask us questions on our thoughts on the particular stories that we covered, as well as give their thoughts on podcasts and whatever, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do they do that with you?
Best place to find me is here on YouTube. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel. And if you want to find me and follow me on social media and always be alerted when I put up a new video, then follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right. And Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost, how do people get a hold of you for the opinions you've expressed?
Well, you can always find me on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on VidMe at vid.me/StudioGhost. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I am also on Twitter at RomneyReviews, no apostrophe S. And for this week's Romney's recommendation, I believe I've recommended this before, but I feel like recommending it again because I've gone through my yearly listening, and that is the Naxos audiobook adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is a fully dramatized version, meaning you have actors playing all the different characters. So you have an actor for Harker, an actor for Van Helsing, an actor for Dr. Seward, and specifically you have, Heathcote Williams as Dracula. It is a very enjoyable rendition of Dracula, and yes, it is abridged, but if you want an experience similar to reading the novel, but you don't have the patience to sit down and read the text, this is a good version. It's fully voiced, fully dramatized with sound effects. It feels like you're actually there with the characters as they try to stop Dracula from returning to his castle. And I listen to it every year because every year with the sound design and everything, I get goosebumps as I listen to it. It is definitely a good audiobook. So that's this week's Romney's recommendation, is the Naxos audiobook adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
All right. And that's actually one of those things that I do know listeners have asked for, more expansion onto Romney's recommendations, maybe even things that Alex might recommend as an anime fan or stuff like that. And well, the best way to be able to get things like this to be able to happen consistently is to continue to support the podcast itself. Now, first of all, if you guys want to get a hold of me, the best ways to do so are you can follow me on Twitter at Drac2326. You're obviously on my YouTube channel right now, and I would strongly ask that you guys check out the content that I do provide on my channel, which is just general all-around geeky stuff. I do Let's Plays, I do reviews, I do vlogs. I talk about the stuff that either frustrates me or makes me absolutely love what I do. All of that happens. So you guys can check that out. You can also check out my YouTube channel's Facebook page, which is at DracLP, and leave your feedback there because I really just take all the feedback and just all lump it all together and figure out how to make things overall better. But the biggest thing that we would ask is that you guys support the podcast. And you guys have already done that in this past week. I've been very happy with what we've been able to do since the podcast has hit iTunes. But the podcast is on iTunes, so make sure that you search for Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions and subscribe to it. You'll get up to the minute episodes when they're up. I'm also going to be trying very hard to be able to get the most modern episodes up quicker so that you guys get access to it a lot quicker, just in case you can't join us live. So you guys can support us there, or you can go to the direct page that we have on Podomatic, which is geekyweek.podomatic.com. That's where you'll be able to listen to the episodes as they're edited, fresh right off the presses, and be able to enjoy our geekery whenever you guys want. And also, you can follow us on social media. And the best way to be able to do that is you can go to Twitter and look up @GeekyNRO, and Facebook is actually under the exact same username. So GeekyNRO on Facebook. You'll get up-to-the-minute information when we're going live, the stuff we're going to be talking about. We're also going to be reaching out to you guys on polls of stuff you guys would like us to do. There's plenty of awesome stuff that's going to be coming to social media for you guys in particular, because I have a feeling we're going to be we're already getting brand new listeners. We're only going to get more. And that means the podcast can only go up from here. So thank you guys again so much for supporting the podcast, for joining us for the very first time. We appreciate you guys as well. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us this week. When we get back next week, we will be back with even more geek news, reviews, and opinions. So for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we'll see you guys next time.